your goal is to be the best in some field one day. And whatever that field is, don't look back and let that one field be the thing that train wrecks the rest of your life. And I think you did such a good job of using the platform that God gave you and the gifts and abilities that you have.
Anytime you hop on an NFL football field, you understand there's risk. Now, like the barbaric nature of the game, your adrenaline, you're not necessarily thinking about that in the moment. You're not thinking about it pregame, but there's a lot of risk just kind of putting yourself out there every week. The average career in the NFL is 3.25 seasons. That's why we get vested at 4 years, because the average you got to at least go above the average to get vested, to get your benefits and all that. But a lot of guys get out in their late 20s, early 30s, and your only expertise is football at that point. And so then you're competing with guys like yourself that have been doing something since their early 20s. They got 10-something years of experience on you. You got to be really careful competing in areas, especially when you're risking your livelihood, your kind of safe haven, your nest egg at home on those things.
All right, welcome back to the Risky Business Podcast. I am honored to sit here with today's guest, Mr. Eric Wood. Before you say anything, Eric, let me read your intro. Eric Wood is a former NFL Pro Bowl center who spent 9 seasons in the NFL with the Buffalo Bills after being drafted in the first round. Not many people can say that. 28th overall in the 2009 draft. As a standout at the University of Louisville, Eric became one of the league's most respected offensive linemen, known for his leadership, toughness, and consistency. In 2018, a career-ending neck injury forced Eric to retire, but he quickly reinvented himself. Today, he's a broadcaster, speaker, author, podcaster, host of the Centered on Buffalo podcast. And also, he started the Evan Wood Foundation, which serves critically ill children and their families, rooted in faith, family, and service. Eric's story is all about taking bold risk and reinventing himself. Eric, thanks so much for joining me.
Dude, it's a pleasure.
On the podcast. That was a mouthful. There you go. Now you can talk.
Absolutely. I've been a fan of this podcast for a while. I asked you early on, I said, well, when do I get the invite? You said, well, let me sharpen my skills a little first. So I'm glad we're at this point where we can now sit down.
Thank you. I'm glad. Hopefully it's sharp enough as of now that I didn't want to ask you to come in and then just completely botch the whole thing. So
you were
get a
doing
few
good
reps
job
in before I brought the
I
A crew.
Put the Joey Wagners on first. I'm just kidding. No. I only say that because Joey's a great friend of mine.
Oh, no.
And so is your dad. I was going to say your dad, but Dave might get more sensitive than Joey.
Joey was a great episode. If you haven't listened to that, His was fun. And we're in a new studio now, so this one's not far from your house. So
it's a beautiful
Thanks
spot.
for making the trip. It's beautiful in here. Shout out to Cam and all the guys. So when I first started playing out this podcast back a year and a half ago, I was really excited to hear your story of risk. And as you've told me, you've listened to a few episodes, so thank you for being a listener. And I wore my Make an Impact shirt today, which was Eric's brand. It is a little wrinkled, but it was worth wearing today.
Well, it's an old shirt too.
It is old. It's probably 2020, 2021?
Somewhere around there. Yeah, maybe 2019-ish.
And I remember getting it, but I remember when you first injured your neck, I remember just seeing the way that you transferred from, obviously, a Pro Bowl center who had been very successful in the NFL to quickly transitioning into podcasting and broadcasting and all those different things. Tell us about what that transition was like a little bit.
Yeah, so career abruptly ends. And I've told this story many times, but I played every single snap of the 2017 season. We make the playoffs for the first time in my entire career. Longest playoff drought in all of pro sports. Sean McDermott's there. I know we're going to draft a new quarterback who ends up being Josh Allen. I signed a contract extension before the season, play every single snap, and at the exit physical, they find a creating neck injury. So I find out that news in the waiting room in the delivery room. We're waiting on my son to be born. He would be born 50 minutes later when I find out officially that my career is over. So hit an absolute whirlwind. We have this blessing of a healthy baby boy, and my daughter Grace was 2.5 at the time. And we just think we own a house in Buffalo, and we spend part of the year in Louisville. I spend more time than the rest of the family up in Buffalo. They wouldn't go up with me in the spring. But all that being said, now our life's turned upside down. Now this life that we thought we'd live for, I don't know how many more years, I would have loved. It would have been hard for me to walk away. Me and your dad have had this conversation many times that in this is kind of when head injuries were getting to be more and more prevalent, to where the research was out there. The CTE documentary came out, and I said, Dave, you think I should ever think about, the head injuries and all that? Like, what's your thoughts, Dave? Because he was a part of a personal advisory board for me, like some men in my life that I said, hey, you can speak into anything across the board in my life, please, because I aspire to be like you one day. And your dad was like, I don't think this is time for you to walk away, but pray that God makes it crystal clear when it's time for you to walk away. And disc and bone sitting in your spinal cord, and the top neurologists around the country saying, you're lucky you're not a paraplegic. You can never play football again, though. That was crystal clear. So put me on a path to figure out what was next for me. That was the genesis of the What's Next with Eric Wood podcast, as I was trying to figure out these next steps in my life. And ultimately, after about 6 months of really not being able to do anything because we were in a dispute with the Bills over the money, and I can't technically be retired. If I get a job, now I'm retiring. I'm not injury disqualified. So it led to a lot of time that was valuable for me to have conversations with a lot of people, seek out some advice, some mentorship. And ultimately, I decided that a path in media, if I ever wanted to take it, now's the time, because I'm still halfway relevant from just hopping out of pro football. And I'm not trying to, undermine, some athletic success I had. But when you're a offensive lineman in a very small market on a losing organization, I wasn't one of the household names around the country. So if I wanted to hop in, I needed to hop into it. Started the podcast to learn the other side of the mic, where as athletes, we're always the ones getting asked the questions. I needed to learn the other side of the mic as well. And so the podcast helped with that. I ended up getting a job at ESPN. Shortly after I accepted that, the Bills offered me a job to be the color commentator on the radio broadcast. So I did both for 2 years and ultimately enjoyed the Bills gig a lot more. So after 2 years, I thanked ESPN for the opportunity, but just stuck with the Bills gig. So I've been in the podcast space and all of that, but it's definitely not all sunshine and rainbows when your dream is taken from you, something you worked so hard for, but extremely lucky and fortunate that I had incredible people in my life. I had a foundation in Christ that I could lean back on. And then first and foremost, just an unbelievable supportive wife that was just ride or die throughout my career. And then as we transitioned to the next chapter, hey, go chase your dreams again. There was never man, you're going to take 2 gigs this fall. It was, hey, go get double the experience. You don't do anything halfway in life, and she knows that about me. And so it was, go chase this next dream, this next career, whatever it may be, with all your heart, and I'll support you again.
That's one thing I really looked up to you in, was it would have been so easy. Anybody can look up what NFL contract guys made in their NFL playing career. It would have been so easy to just sit there and go, hey, I had real rough career-ending injury, and I want to take a couple years off. I want to play a lot of golf. I want to spend time with my kids. Obviously, you did a lot of both of those things.
Yeah.
But you leaned in and you decided, like, hey, if I'm going to reinvent myself and become a color commentator and a media personality in the football space, that if I wait 2 years and take this 2 years off and just ride off in the sunset and sip martinis on the beach, margaritas on the beach, probably not martinis on the beach.
Either.
If you're hanging out on the beach the whole time and not doing anything, then you'd be like itching right now, hey, I want to get into this, and it'd be a whole lot tougher to get into.
And I'd be wasting gifts that I've been giving, wasting a platform, and just understanding the way I'm wired, and really that 6 months of being around the house and realizing I'm not good with just a whole bunch of free time. And yes, I love to play golf. I love the fact that I still have the flexibility. I took my kids to school this morning and picked them up from school yesterday. And I get that flexibility to take them to practices throughout the week. And yes, I'm gone for a bunch of weekends a year, but it also kind of kept us in a pretty healthy rhythm and a consistent rhythm where, hey, the falls are busy, which they always were when I was playing. And then you get some downtime in the off season, and, my body does it. I don't need the recovery time in the off season like I used to. But it's fun because then we'll, schedule trips and we appreciate them more. And I knew that no matter what it was, I was going to need to be doing something And to me, and you can read any type of, personal development book, find out what you're good at, go chase your dreams, work your hardest. And I agree with all that. And so when I was kind of analyzing some skill sets and leaning into my advisory board, they're like, yeah, go give it a shot and go run with it. And so that's where I'm still sitting at today.
What do you feel like is how do you scratch your competitive itch today when you just take off a football helmet and you don't get to hit somebody every single day for a whole entire season? How do you scratch that itch today?
Yeah. And that's where the game of golf's been really good for me, because and I talk to veterans from the military, guys that have retired from business. The game of golf has given me something to try to get better at, sometimes daily, but weekly, realistically.
You are in a golf polo today in shorts, so I think we know where you're headed.
Yeah, I'm heading to the course from here. That is true. But finding healthy competition in your life. I'm a competitor by nature. I don't need to be competing at home. I don't need to be competing. I like to compete business-wise. I like looking at deals, and, I want to be a good steward of my money, and I want to, run with opportunities and provide value where I can, if it's certain businesses and whatnot. But guys get in a lot of trouble when you're a former pro athlete. Some guys get in a lot of trouble. There's the Junior Bridgmans of the world, and everyone thinks they're the next Junior Bridgman of the world. For every Junior Bridgman, there's 50 former pro athletes that get into real estate. And, for a property that you've seen 20 times before maybe it even hit the market, now guys are looking at listings saying, oh, I'll buy this one, I'll flip it, I'll take this commercial real estate property and run with it. And guys get in a lot of trouble when you compete outside of your skill set. I mean, the average career in the NFL is 3.25 seasons. That's why we get vested at 4 years, because the average you got to at least go above the average to get vested, to get your benefits and all that. But a lot of guys get out in their late 20s, early 30s, and your only expertise is football at that point. And so then you're competing with guys like yourself that have been doing something since their early 20s. They got 10-something years of experience on you. You got to be really careful competing in areas, especially when you're risking your livelihood, your, kind of safe haven, your nest egg at home on those things.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought of it that way. And you think back to, I'll ask you a question at the end of this, but you think back to, if you played pro football, you probably spent every waking second from middle school on playing or training for football. And so there wasn't really much free time in high school, college, and after that to really round yourself out in other areas where people who aren't good at sports are sitting there reading business books or sitting in the library and spending a lot of other time. That probably, what was the way that you felt like was your competitive edge in football? And
I'll say this, and I go back and speak to young guys with the Bills or other organizations, or I'll talk to guys that maybe my agency's recruiting, and I'll say, look, you have a likely short window to go make generational wealth, chase your dreams, do incredible things, create a platform that you can use for great value later or all throughout your life, even during your career. But go all in. Don't be the guy that is flirting around with, internships in the off season. Like, I understand there's value in that, but you can get to that. The more you start focusing on things outside of football, the quicker you're going to get outside of football. And that's all I'll tell them. I'm like, Tom Brady's an extreme example, scripting his whole year around, peaking in the Super Bowl. So where if they lost in the playoffs, he was still training through the Super Bowl. And, there's videos of him throwing passes on a, Super Bowl Sunday on a day that he's not playing in the Super Bowl because he's trying to peak through the Super Bowl every single year. That's the extreme example. But how close can you get to that to where you're maximizing your potential in the NFL? So that was always my mindset on that. And, growing up, I played all the sports, and football's a little different. Like, people play travel baseball and it's reps. Well, football's a little different. You need, if I'm going to go do offensive line reps, I likely need someone to go against me. It's wear and tear on the body. And that's where a lot of football players were, basketball players, wrestlers, baseball players, whatever. Lacrosse, pretty popular now with guys converting from, high school lacrosse players to becoming Division I football players or whatever it may be. But I played all the sports. In college was the first time that I didn't play another sport, and I was completely locked in on football. And you're right. It's, a day off, sitting around watching TV. Your mindset is, I'm recovering for tomorrow. And, even a day off, my wife would tell you, I rarely ever took a day off in the NFL. A day off might be a day of recovery modalities at the facility.
Yeah. I was listening to a podcast yesterday, and they were talking about a guy talking about when he interviews people was just saying, hey, if I'm looking for a videographer for my company to come in and interview, he's like, one of my favorite things to do is ask them what they do in their free time. What's their favorite hobby? And he's like, if I'm looking for a videographer, my goal is that they're saying, oh man, like I love just videography content, and I love like figuring out like how I can best be making, like hone my skills in, what I mean? And it's like in the same way, obviously you're at the highest level of football, and it's like when you weren't playing football or practicing football or I don't know, reading plays. I don't know what an offensive lineman playbook looks like, but
it's the same playbook. We don't have the quarterback has to know what everybody's doing. I don't necessarily need to know what the receivers are doing. Now I need to know how deep the routes are based upon the timing of the play, how aggressive you could be in pass protection. If it's going to be a long one, you better set back because you can't get smoked right away.
Okay, timeout. Explain to me a legal man downfield, because it's a rule that like I feel like in the last 5 years has just you see it all the time, or you hear everybody say, "Oh, they could have called it every single play."
So you see it all the time nowadays because of the RPOs, run pass option. Those have become really popular. They started in the college game. Those quarterbacks are coming into the league. That's their comfort zone. Okay, so we'll put a few of those in for them. Quarterbacks have gotten more mobile. So run pass option, you either hand it off, quarterback can keep it and run, or you're going to throw it. Well, the offensive line is running the run play. And so if that quarterback doesn't get rid of the ball until if the offensive linemen are further than 1 yard down the field, it should be called as illegal man downfield on any play. And
so if you just absolutely plow your guy that you're supposed to be blocking.
Yep. And he doesn't get rid of the football fast enough, I'm going to be downfield. And so that's where you see it a lot more often because those plays have become more popular.
Was there ever a time the guy on defense would like purposely just get plowed over to get you back past that line, or is that not a thing?
No, because they don't know that could be. They don't know which play is coming, so they're not going to flop on their back to like let you go. Now, great offensive coordinators will maybe have the offensive line go more lateral on a run play and not have a play where you're going straight downhill to make that easier. Maybe, hey, you have two guys pulling on the play, so they're starting behind the line of scrimmage because they're pulling around the other offensive lineman. Good offensive coordinators do more of that, but not every offensive coordinator is top tier throughout the college and NFL game.
Yeah, I feel like every time I see it, they're like, oh, you could call it on every single play. Do you feel like that's the case?
Not on every single play. But
I mean, obviously on a run play, you can never call it.
Especially in college, I see it. It drives me nuts because I don't know how, as a linebacker, an offensive lineman's coming towards you. You have to go engage the block, and then they throw the ball right behind him. I'm like, that offensive lineman was 3 yards down the field. Now I'm generally yelling when it's my Cardinals. It's something happened to U of L like that. But and U of L doesn't do a ton of that. So I can be pretty one-sided in that argument.
Best running back room in America is what I've heard this year.
Oh yeah. I don't know how they got both those guys back, but credit to Jeff Brom, Michael Dudas, who runs a bunch of the NIL over there, Josh Hurd. Credit to those guys for getting those two guys back.
Yeah, I'm excited for this season. This will be. I've seen some projections that one of them I saw. I was like, and I won't even get into it.
Well,
somebody projected us to not lose a game.
I'll say this. The college game is so hard to predict now because of all the transfers. There's so much turnover. I went out to U of L's practice on Friday, and besides, a few of the studs that are back from last year, I have a depth chart on one hand and a roster on the other, trying to figure out, and I'm standing with Pete Nocta, the recruiting coordinator, trying to figure out, who's this guy? Where'd he come from? This guy looks pretty good.
It's like, I watched him at Clemson last year.
Yeah, exactly.
I know exactly who he is. That's been the most fun thing for me is just like following players around. Obviously I went to Liberty, so Caden Salter, our quarterback, transferred to Colorado this year. And so it'll be fun to watch him play for Coach Prime.
For sure.
But so if you are, obviously you love the Bills, obviously you love Louisville. Take the Bills, take Louisville out of it. Which do you like watching better, college or NFL?
NFL. And that's part of the reason that I left ESPN it's like anything in life. Like when you get a step up in the game or step up in business, whatever it is, it's hard to go back. And I have tremendous appreciation for the college game still. It's just not the same game. And I find myself, especially because I don't know any of these players anymore, they're not sticking around the same college for year after year for the most part. So it's harder to like watch a casual college game for me, but I can turn on NFL football almost any time and watch it.
Yeah, and you know half the guys, I would guess.
Yep.
What's been, so as looking back, because I remember the first time I remember meeting you was, I don't know if you remember this, was Skyline Chili.
Yep.
Probably
After
like
church.
your sophomore year. It was very, very early on.
Yeah.
And we went out to lunch. I don't even, what year would that have been? 2000, what was your freshman year?
It wasn't my freshman year. It was probably midway through my college career. So that was probably
2009 you get drafted. So
it was probably
2007.
It was probably 2007 because, and I say that I became a more regular attendee of Southeast, probably my sophomore, junior year of college.
That's funny. I still remember, and I think it was you and Leslie going out to lunch. That was funny.
Yeah. So then it was 2007, 2008.
Yeah, that's funny. Okay, a couple risk questions. Obviously, we're on the Risky Business Podcast. I'm excited for people to hear the story of risk, especially leading up to. I feel like it's an easy cop out. You took some major risk young in life to make sure that obviously you prepared your body and yourself well to go to U of L. What do you feel like the biggest risk you took in your playing career in the NFL was?
In my playing career, I re-signed with the Bills twice early, and we weren't very good. And we were inevitably going to go through an ownership change because our owner was on his deathbed. But I wanted to be a part of the Bills. And I was a first-round draft pick. And to me, playing in the longest playoff drought in all of professional sports, I know I'm not the quarterback, I'm the center, but I just felt like through my leadership, whatever it may be, I need to help get this franchise over the hump. I want to help the culture here. I want to be a part of the team that breaks this playoff drought. And thank God I was. In my final year, my second last game, we clinched the playoffs. For those watching, if you haven't watched the video of us in the Dolphins locker room when we watched the Bengals beat the Ravens and sent us to the playoffs, we took care of business and got the win, but we needed a little bit of help. And they beat the Ravens, and we go nuts. But
I still remember that. It like cuts to you, like pans over to you for a second. You got the big fro going, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And so there was some risk in re-signing with the Bills. I re-signed early. Anytime you're kind of redoing a contract, there's risk. And am I accepting not enough money? You know what? There's risks in that. I had been hurt my first 4 years in the NFL. The Bills still decided to re-sign me. So I appreciated their loyalty. Anytime you're coming back from injuries, there's risk. I did the Joe Theismann leg break my rookie year, started the first game of the season the next year, and there's risks and there's uneasy feelings. Is this thing ready to roll? I did my ACL 2 years later, and that fourth year, when I'm playing, is this thing going to go again? So, honestly, anytime you hop on an NFL football field, you understand there's risks. Now, like the barbaric nature of the game, your adrenaline, you're not necessarily thinking about that in the moment. You're not thinking about it pregame, but there's a lot of risk just kind of putting yourself out there every week, laying your body on the line. Am I going to embarrass myself in front of tens of thousands of people in the stadium and millions watching, around the country? There's risk in just kind of putting yourself out there.
And you put your hand on the ball every single play.
Yep. Yeah. The play starts with you.
Your ability for the amount that you could mess up the game is so much higher than I don't know, a left guard. You can snap one over the head and lose 30 yards.
You take the center for granted until, a backup comes in or someone gets off with their shotgun snaps and every play starts mistimed. You could take that for granted.
Did you ever just snap one over a quarterback's head, just 20 yards and just...
Never over their head. We had one game at Detroit where the ball slipped out of my hand, completely slipped out of my hand on a shotgun snap on a third down, which, I played 120 games or something. I still remember that exact play because it rolled back. And then the quarterback who I probably snapped to most of my career is Ron Fitzpatrick. And in back-to-back games... under center, we fumbled a snap. Now, I don't think we lost either of them, but that's a loss of a play. You only get so many plays in a game, and you never know which one's going to be the one that is going to be the big one. So you don't want to waste any of them. And we'd come to the sideline. I'm like, was that me or you? He's like, I honestly don't know. I'm like, well, that's not a good answer for either of us in this moment. But fortunately, that it didn't happen often.
Gosh, yeah, I can't imagine what would it be, a place kick holder, like, no, you don't want to know their name until
Well, that's like
you don't
Romo.
You don't want people to know your name as a center.
Maybe I'm a sicko for this is my, like, what I remember about Tony Romo's career, but the playoff game where he fumbles the field goal snap and they lose the game. I mean,
don't know if I remember
that was
one.
Tony Romo.
Yeah.
Like, that's what he was known for forever, because generally it's your punter or backup quarterback that's going to hold for PATs and field goals, and Tony botched it.
I don't remember that one. Yeah, that's tough. Was it on the Cowboys?
Yep.
Oh, that's tough. Okay, any risks? One other question I'd love to ask is, was there a risk that you regret not taking, that you look back on and you go, okay, that was something that I had the opportunity to take that I didn't do? It's okay if not.
No, nothing hits my brain in the moment. I mean, you can always look back on your career, and with hindsight being 2020, like, okay, now, you know, are there certain trainers or doctors or whoever I could have seen that could have maybe taken my game to the next level? Or there trips in the offseason I could have skipped and maybe I would have gotten a little bit better? And how does that change the trajectory of my career? Now, the way everything worked out, I wouldn't change a thing. Just where I'm at in life, I just wouldn't change anything. But, you know, you think back and then you get exposed to, you know, the Tom Brady's of the world, and you say, could there be more that I would have done, could have done, that would have came with maybe missing buddies' bachelor parties or weddings or whatever it may be. And I wouldn't trade those memories. But when I look back, I feel like I gave it my all, especially in the moment. But then you look back and you're always like, is there something more I could have done in those instances? But I give myself some grace, just understanding, like, at that moment, and that's where people in general have to, you know, just, I would say most of the regrets that people have in life, in the moment, maybe you weren't as mature as you are now. Maybe you aren't where you are spiritually right now. Maybe you just didn't know what you know now. I mean, countless entrepreneurs and business owners that have had failures early in their business, you know, career, that have tremendous success now would say, oh man, looking back, I wish I would have done that, but the failures likely led to them being where they are right now.
Yeah, of course. I look up to you a ton in just the way that you just handled success and the way that you handled it and the way that you, I mean, we see each other every couple weeks at a Bible study that we're in. It's fun to see the way that you just handle it so humbly, and the way that you pour into others, and you're generous and you lean into wise counsel. And it would be so easy to be, 20 to 30-year-old, obviously not in your 20s now, but when you were in the NFL, you were, and be that age and, you know, think, hey, I've made it to the top of this. I have it all together. And who puts together an advisory board of people that they look up to? You know what I mean? Like, that's not a normal thing.
No, and fortunately, I worked with an executive coach. I was an accountability partner for a buddy of mine that had an executive coach. I started working with that executive coach, and he's the one that gave me the advice to create an advisory board. Now, by nature, I'm coachable. I like to be coached, no matter what it is in life, whether it's media work, whether it's when I was playing football, whether it's playing golf, whatever it may be. That's why I like going to your parents' house for couples Bible study. I feel like we could all use coaching in our marriages from people that are further along, that, you know, how do we not step on maybe the same landmines that they did? And then how can we then pass along those lessons to others to then make an impact on their lives? And so I like to be coachable, and, you know, having an advisory board might not be realistic for, you know, just anyone out there, but just having some buddies that you can say, hey, any blind spots in my life, I give you full permission to speak into it, whether that's finances, relationship, whether that's my spiritual walk, whatever it may be. I want you to speak into it, and you can check me at any time on this. And, you know, to this day, you know, my best friend, Josh Haynes, you know, he'll do that to me constantly. I was supposed to go on a golf trip prior to Chicago Bears preseason game last week. And I said, Josh, I'm thinking about skipping, you know, going up to Indianapolis, playing crooked stick, and then going to the Live tournament, which I got a bunch of buddies that play for the Live Tour. And Josh goes, you asking me that is your answer. And I'm like, oh, that's not what I wanted to hear. He's like, well, I'm not here to give you what you want to hear. Like, I'm your buddy. Like, I'm your friend, you know? And so
this is the answer you shouldn't go.
Yeah. I mean, if it wasn't weighing on me that I probably shouldn't go, I should spend that time with my family.
Yeah.
We had a buddy's 40th birthday party Saturday night that I was going to miss, which my plans were scheduled first, but that's not the point. And so, I crave being surrounded by people like that. I like to play golf with guys that are better than I am so I can learn from them.
Mm-hmm.
I like to sit in business meetings with people that are smarter than me because I want to constantly learn from them.
I think if you're sitting in the car and you're just driving down the road, listen to this today, and you take anything away and you say, okay, obviously I myself am never going to play NFL football. I myself am never going to be at this top high level athlete. I think the main thing that I'm taking away from this conversation and that I can learn from Eric, and I know you can too, would just be your goal is to be the best in some field one day. And whatever that field is, don't look back and let that one field be the thing that train wrecks the rest of your life. And I think you did such a good job of using the platform that God gave you and the gifts and abilities that you have as a high-level NFL player to say, hey, I'm going to use this to springboard the rest of my career to impact people, I'm wearing a Make an Impact shirt today, to lean in, provide value, and to also not just be one-dimensional, and to say, hey, I know I'm the best at this, but also I need a board of people who can lean into me and speak and have hard conversations with me and invite them into that. So if that's you today and you're driving, listen to what Eric's saying there.
Well, and everyone will say, your network is your net worth. And, the old Jim Rohn quote, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And you can find a bunch of different sayings and one-liners with that. But I truly believe the people you surround yourself with are going to create your future. And, whether that's a podcast that you listen to consistently, that's a consistent voice, whether that's you in real estate getting lunches with top real estate people. No, they might not be one of your best friends, but hey, can I pick your brain on this? You're further along than me. I want to learn from you. And you'd be surprised how many people want to give back, especially when they've made it in life. And, most people don't see everybody as competent. I always mentored the rookies, understanding that one of these guys could potentially take my job one day. Probably not this year, but they could take my job one day. But I still want to help them out because people helped me out. When I got to the University of Louisville, I played center between 2 guards and 2 tackles that all played in the NFL. I got to learn from them. And so to me, it's about, giving it back to someone behind me. Well, maybe I'm naive to the fact that I'll reach out to people and say, hey, can we meet? Can we talk? And you'll be surprised how many people are willing to pour back into you to help you have success as well.
That's cool. Well, you've done that for me. So thank you. And thanks for your time. And I'm excited for people to listen to this and hear your story and hear how a non-normal story of risk can make your life better. So
I appreciate that, brother.
Yeah. Thank you.